Hello everybody and welcome to our on-screen tutorial for this week. Last week we were chatting about how to recognize the potential for online fraud taking place on your e-commerce platform. And we were going through all the indicators or the indications of potentially something happening fraudulent within your online shop. Today we're going to be chatting about tips on how to deal with a potential fraudulent transaction. And how I wrapped up last week's session was to say that just know that if online fraud takes place on your site and is not reversed by yourself, if you know that it's fraudulent, the bank can actually reverse the funds out of your account at any time once the card is cancelled, etc. So be vigilant and politely investigate all odd-looking transactions until you are satisfied that the transaction is actually legitimate. We're now actually going to go through a couple of pointers that you could use if you want to go about investigating a transaction. So first, just to give you a little bit more background, the reason why banks are mandated to reverse the transaction is because as merchants, we are responsible to request the necessary identification and signature at time of payment. Remember that this is very difficult within an online environment as opposed to being in a bricks and mortar shop, because the customer is actually not there. It's not a human experience when we're shopping online. We try to create that, but you don't have the opportunity as a cashier or a shop assistant or the gut instinct to kick in because the person isn't standing there in front of you. So we all know that it's really challenging for transactions going through an e-commerce platform to actually pick up if something is fraudulent because the customer is not in front of us. So we do have some tips that we shared last week about how to identify potential fraud taking place online. And then, of course, we're going to include some tips below. I see that there is a lot of education out there for people who are shopping online so that they are not actually scammed. But there's very little that I could find for online shopkeepers like ourselves. So I've just dug into my own memory over the years to see how I have dealt with it. And I've created these pointers below. So this hasn't been extracted from online. This is what we are actually using within our own online shop. So if you think a transaction could be fraudulent, do not release any goods, even though the funds may be in your account. And it's very, very tempting to have large sums of money in your account. But you're going to cry in a few months' time if you've released the goods, you've kept and spent the money, you've paid the supplier, and now the bank has come knocking to say, listen, where is the proof and credibility and validation of this transaction that went through the account? Because on their side, the credit card has maybe been cancelled or tagged as fraud. So then you're going to be crying big tears. So although it's tempting, don't release the goods or use the money until you have validated the customer. So these are just a couple of tips of what you could do. You could email, which is probably better because you have proof there by email, or you could call the customer and politely say that the bank has requested full authentication for the specific transaction in question. So I've done it by email before quite a few times, and then I've also maybe just picked up the phone. That's a good idea as well. Ask them to email ask them or email them to request a scanned copy of the front and back of the credit card, as well as a copy of their ID book, ID card, or passport, and also to include a copy of their signature. Note that the credit card must be in their name and surname and not in someone else's. Also note that we have a standard email template that we have actually set up for this very purpose. So sometimes I might want to just weed them out over the phone. And if someone is just never responding to me, that's a good sign that it could be fraud, and follow up with a couple of emails as well. You may also like to do a few searches to see if you can validate them using Google, LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. You can do that with names and surnames as well as email addresses. It's normal that over 80% of us statistically are actually stalking each other online before we are doing business with each other. So everybody is doing this already. Pop in someone's email address, put in their name and surname, and see what Google returns. You could also do a search to see where the package will be delivered and what type of place or location the package will be delivered to. See maybe if the postal code has been blacklisted. That would be interesting as well, and a courier company could help you with that. If the customer or fraudster is sketchy and avoids you in any way, know that the transaction is likely to be fraud. Customers who are legitimate really want their items and will get back to you ASAP. Ensure that your payment processor has all the necessary layers of security to include the one-time PIN and 3D Secure. This makes your online shopping process as safe as possible for both you and your customer. You can also use the comprehensive safety of your payment processor as a USP or a unique selling point when you are communicating with your customers on social media, etc. So those are some tips that I wanted to share with you today. You're welcome to write them down. Continue to view the video so that you have the pointers in front of you, and make a bit of a list that you can keep in a file with you at your desk for when and if this unfortunate situation raises its head within your online shopping environment. So thank you very much for listening today, and I look forward to chatting with you again sometime in the very near future. Take care. Bye-bye.